We come now to the last section of the morning, and our focus is sharp now on primary care or chaplaincy in the primary care world. And it's no surprise that we're going to finish the morning thinking about chaplaincy in GP practices. And I want to introduce Helen Watts to you. Helen is a chaplain. She works at Caris in Birmingham, and she provides a great blessing and service to the staff there and to the patients that she sees. She has a BPhil in counselling and has worked in the private and the public sector before she moved to chaplaincy about 9 years ago, Helen. And she's going to finish this morning by telling us what is happening with primary care chaplaincy across the whole of the UK.
It's great to be here. Oh, wow, suddenly I've been at the front looking this way, and I'd come and look this way, and suddenly there's lots and lots of people. How wonderful. I confess I went into the wrong lecture hall first thing this morning, the one that holds 5,000 people. And I thought, oh my goodness, what were we thinking? But thankfully, I was in the wrong place. And we were thinking the right thing, because it's good to be here, isn't it? And it's a lovely, lovely time together. I hope that's not going to annoy you too much. Maybe I'll put it somewhere else. I just do need these notes. So I just want to thank the previous speakers for laying such a wonderful foundation for us of what the scene is, really, what the need is, what the experience is in the community, in people's lives, but also in primary care and what it's like in the health service. Thank you so much. You've done a great job, and it was wonderful to hear from Patrick as well. Sad that he couldn't be with us all day. The other string to my bow now, which I can boast about, is that I am a trained Kintsugi Hope practitioner as well, and I've run a Kintsugi Hope course, so I'm a passionate advocate for that too. And if you get the chance, do it, and do it in your church. We've done it in our church, and we're going to continue to do it, so that's great. It's my job now to really bring it into focus and think about what does primary care chaplaincy really look like on the ground. So we've had the big ideas, but I'm hoping that this next section is going to bring it down with a bit of a bump, because we're just going to get practical and just going to think about what are we actually doing and how are we doing it. So I've set myself 3 main goals for this talk. And by the way, I will be the speaker that speaks beyond the end when you should be having your lunch. That is going to be me. But it wasn't entirely my fault. I hope you'll know that. You'll agree that it wasn't entirely my fault. But these are my goals for, for my talk. So just to think about what actually does happen in the room. We've talked about primary care chaplaincy. There are lots of you in the room who are chaplains, but there are many who are not. So this is to give you a flavour of what are we actually up to? What are we doing in the room? How is primary healthcare chaplaincy being delivered? Around the country. It's being delivered in lots of different ways, so I'm going to think about the different ways in which it's being delivered. And what do we know about some of the benefits of primary healthcare chaplaincy? I've enlisted the help of some people to tell this story, as it were, and you're going to meet some people along the way by means of video presentations. Some of those people are in this room, so when you see them over lunch or over the next tea break, pounce on them and get their autograph or something, and but ask them questions, ask them about their experience, because they very kindly volunteered to be in my videos. You're going to hear from some GP chaplains, you're going to hear from some GPs, some service commissioners, and some patients. And I just want to thank everybody who's taking part in these little videos as we go along. Really grateful to you for being brave enough to take part. And thank you as well, no one's mentioned Nathan, who is filming today. Thank you to Nathan, who helped me to edit the videos. He's put them all together for me and made them look much more professional than I could have ever done, so thank you. Another slide I have that you're going to have to get used to is this one. This is what I call my in-between slide. This is the slide that's up when I'm talking about something that isn't on any of the other slides, and it's because some of the slides have videos that just start, so if I click too soon, it's in the wrong place. So I've got my little in-between slide, so sorry about that. So I am a primary healthcare chaplain. And when people ask me, what do I do? And I say, I'm a primary healthcare chaplain. Many of them say, ooh, that sounds interesting. Tell me more about that. And I think tell me more is actually quite a great question for people to ask. And it's part of my answer actually, my answer to that is I say to people, tell me more about that. I listen to people who come to my service. It's about listening. Primary healthcare chaplaincy, at the bottom line, is about listening. I think it's about learning. It's about drawing alongside people, often people who are in distress. I'll think about that in a moment, in order to help them make some sort of sense of what it is that's happening to them. And as Longtide tell me more, what's happening is also quite an interesting and important question. We find ourselves talking about what has happened, and often we find ourselves talking about what would you like to happen, but we start really with what's happening. Tell me about what's happening in your life. That's a really great kind of opener for a chaplain, I think. So I know that many of you are chaplains, but I just want to sort of spell it out for those of you who maybe haven't encountered chaplains in primary care before, because we're quite a different animal from other kinds of chaplaincy. We're quite different, for example, from prison chaplains or from hospital or hospice chaplains. I know some retail chaplains, nothing like them. So I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about what we are like and what we're doing. We work in surgeries, or usually very close to surgeries, attached to surgeries, and we provide patients with a confidential, compassionate, listening ear. That's really the bottom line. We pay very close attention to what's happening. And we're really interested in trying to help people make some sort of sense of it. We've talked about sense-making and meaning-making quite a lot this morning. We're doing a lot of that. We may not fix it. In fact, very often we don't, unless you all do, but I very often don't fix it. But I'm willing to hear it without judgment. And I think that's a really great gift that very rarely is offered. But it's so, so precious when you're on the receiving end of just being really heard without judgment. So what do we mean by people in distress? Well, the kinds of things that get referred to a primary care chaplain, often the sort of referring issues might be bereavement, anxiety, depression, low mood. We meet people who are facing change in their lives, change of place, change of season, change of relationships, maybe change of sense of self, big changes in life. And as Paul has said, changes are constant, isn't it? Change is always happening. We meet people facing those kinds of changes. And we meet people who maybe have feeling that somehow or other they've lost their way. They've got compassionate GPs. If you're seeing a GP, a primary healthcare chaplain, you've got a very compassionate GP. Thank you to some of the GPs who refer to me who are in this room. These patients have compassionate GPs who understand that there isn't really enough time in a standard consultation to help their patient talk through all the things they need to get off their chest and talk about. The GP knows, as Paul said, that CBT, the wait for that may be a very long wait. And anyway, it may not be the most appropriate therapy for what the patient is experiencing. It has its limitations. And their GP also knows that a referral to other mental health services around the place might actually take a very long time or might not be quite what they need either. GPs do prescribe and are prescribing to our patients medication where that's necessary, but they know that that might not be all that the patient needs. So it's not one or the other, sometimes it's both. And as chaplains, we really pay attention to distress. And we pay attention to their spiritual distress as well. And I think that's at the heart of being hope bearers, which is the title of our conference, in case you'd forgotten. We know that people can't be compartmentalized into body or mind. Or their troubles can't be divided up into it's either symptoms or it's circumstances. We know it doesn't work like that. It's very much more integrated than that. We know that people are longing for a fulfillment within themselves that includes things like having somewhere where they know they belong, having somewhere where they know they are known. Being known is amazing, isn't it? About more than 30 years ago, I moved from Leeds to Birmingham. It was a big move, and I didn't really want to make it at first. And I thought the hard thing would be not knowing anyone. But actually, when I got to Birmingham, I realized the hardest thing was nobody knew me. It wasn't not being known that was harder than I could do something about the people, like not knowing people, but for them to know me was harder. And I think to be known is really, really special. People need to be known. They need to have that sense of meaning or purpose in their life, or being able to think that there might be just some hope in the dark times. Chaplains and the GPs who refer to them know that people have their context, whatever that might be. It might be their family, it might be a background that includes trauma, for example, or it might be that they have a cultural or a faith experience in their background that is informing what's happening to them. So we're interested in all of that. And we have that attitude, tell me more, tell me some more about that. Interestingly, I was talking last night over dinner with some of our speakers, we're finding that where people have a faith, and not everyone who comes to see a primary care chaplain does have a faith, but where they do, often the story we hear is that for people, their mental health practitioner, sound and wise and caring and kind as that person may be, often doesn't quite know what to do with their faith, which to them is integral. It's part of who they are. Their mental health practitioner doesn't always know what to do with that. But at the same time, their faith leader, or their faith community even, they don't know what to do with their mental health challenges or with some of their distress. And I've had it many times in my practice that the patient will report, patients of faith will say, this is the only space where all of that can come together. This is the only place where I can talk about all of me and not feel I have to hide a bit because that someone's not going to know what to do with it. How precious is that? That's incredible. So we're talking about those needs of love, belonging, meaning, and hope. They're not necessarily understood as religious needs. So let's get into how it actually works. Referrals often come through the GP, not always, sometimes self-referrals, sometimes other practitioners are referring. Most chaplaincy services, I think you'll agree, those of you who are chaplains here, are running a waiting list. So patients go on the waiting list, and then eventually their turn comes, and they're offered a number of sessions with a primary care chaplain. Those sessions are contracted rather like 50-minute sessions, rather like counselling sessions. It's rather more structured in some ways than other models of chaplaincy. And then there are often feedback routes back to the referrer, patient-led evaluations, and so on. I'm just going to run a little video now, which has no sound. I'm going to talk over the top of it while it's going. Thank you to a guy called Ed, who is pretending to be my patient for this purpose. So he's acting in the role of a patient. I work at Caris Medical Centre, where Paul is the senior partner. And you can see here, this is Caris Medical Centre. And the chaplains are based in the building. And here's Ed waiting in the waiting room. So he just sits in the waiting room until a very lovely and very nice and kind chaplain invites him into room 12, which is where the magic happens. And so the patient comes in, sits down, the boundaries of the session maybe are provided and offered, and it's all explained what the kind of service is. And then Ed gets a chance to tell his story. He just gets the chance to talk. And he gets a chance to be listened to. And it's my job to listen to him. And you'll notice I'm very privileged. I hope that doesn't make chaplains jealous, but I'm very privileged. We have non-clinical rooms to offer our service in, which is a real gift. It's just wonderful to be able to do that. And we're listening. When Nathan made this video, and I realize I do this a lot with my hands, and I'm doing it this morning, but there you go. Sometimes we make use of art or objects or just little creative activities to help the patient tell their story, to help them to describe what it is that's happening. Sometimes we offer mindfulness exercises, relaxation exercises, breathing techniques, grounding techniques, whatever might assist in bringing some calm to a troubled mind. When it's appropriate and with consent, we offer prayer, or we may offer to use scripture or ritual that supports a person's faith journey. Always the sessions are patient-led. I don't need to look at that frozen screen. Always the sessions are patient-led, and we're just respecting what they want to tell us. I've coined a phrase, respectful curiosity, which I think determines my practice. And those of you who've done our training will have heard that phrase used very many times. I think to have a respectful curiosity, we're not interrogating, we're not just being nosy about people, but we're respectfully curious. What happens and how how do you think you can be helped in this? What is it that you're looking for? Tell me more about it. I actually like the use of objects or different activities because it brings together that whole person idea. What we do with our body has a direct bearing, doesn't it, on what's going on in our mind and vice versa, and in our spirit. We're all together all at once, and so sometimes it helps to hold something or touch something or breathe a certain way or sit a certain way or face in a certain direction. And I think bringing it all together in that way is quite important. It's kind of what neurologists sometimes call integration. When the inner life and the outer world can find a connection, they can find an in sync together, that kind of top-down, bottom-up stuff, really. We need that kind of integration. Those of you who've done the ACGP training for Foundations of Chaplaincy will know these little diagrams, just to sort of reiterate what I'm saying about integration. So the little flower diagram, we call it the flower diagram. The outside oval shape is the body, if you like. It's the bit that we can all see. What you can see, what you can know about me, really, you know through my body. You know it through my body language, my tone of voice, the words I use, the way I behave. That's how you know me. But actually, there's so much more to me that you can't see. There's all the invisible stuff that you can't see. There are my thoughts and my feelings. There's my spiritual sensitivities. There's my hopes and my longings. And those are sort of represented by the other things, which we can't see. I don't know whether you know this. We can't read minds. We can't actually see those things. But we can see each other. And the body gives us so many clues about what's going on. But chaplains are interested in what's inside. And the whole person is in there. And then we've also devised this diagram, which we call a sort of a gap diagram, where we're talking about how the person's true sense of who they want to be, who they feel they are, their core values. Somehow these are the things that would be their backbone. This is the stuff they really hope they are and who they really believe themselves to be. But sometimes life has veered off in a different direction. Maybe their own choices or maybe circumstances. Life has just veered off in a different direction. And they find a gap has opened up. And it's into that gap, down that crack, really, our well-being sort of falls. And so I think what chaplains try to do is walk alongside us on that path to try to see how might we wind our way back to something that feels more true? How might we close that gap? And sometimes that's about the changes that a person wants to make. It might be about forgiveness, degrees of restoration, degrees of understanding, self-acceptance, and those kinds of things. And so those are the conversations we're having. You might find it interesting at this point to meet a few primary healthcare chaplains. So I've got a video for you. Get ready to cringe, chaplains who are in the video. You'll recognise yourselves. And I'm just going to step aside so you're going to see them twice. You know, 2 big screens. I didn't realise there were going to be 2 screens. But anyway, so here are a few chaplains from around the country talking about the work they do.
Hello, my name's Katie Warner. This is the room where I worked for about 7 years at the end of my GPing career. And then about 4 years ago, I got the opportunity to start being a GP chaplain. And I've really been amazed at the power of listening, that giving people attention, how much that journey with them seems to unfold, and they then are exploring and finding their way forward. I really love this room because it's very peaceful. It's got this garden outside, and in fact in the summer we can sit out there, and this is where all the listening and the people just being able to talk and have that time where I can travel with them a bit on whatever journey they're going on. I've had some really lovely times here where people of many different ages, different issues, and I've never quite known how it's going to unfold until it does.
Why do I love being a primary care chaplain? It's the opportunity to stand in a gap for people and to help them find for themselves resources, hope, joy. It's the opportunity to provide that non-judgmental and safe space to talk.
Hi, my name is Martin Kyle. I work with Malcolm Maria at the Ledbury Health Partnership. As a practitioner and chaplain, I have at last found what I wanted to do when I was all grown up. The role places me somewhere between heaven and earth. I mean that I find myself employing learned skills, but significantly depending on the Holy Spirit who comes alongside. The moments that inspire me most are when I and the patient sit in silence, aware of some deep connection. We meet people just like us who have an overwhelming need for love and patience and grace and forgiveness and just being authentically listened to.
Hi, my name's Malcolm, and greetings from the listening guidance team in the lovely little market town of Ledbury, Herefordshire. Our story starts 2015 when the 4 major churches of the town got together for a 12-hour overnight prayer vigil. And from this engine came a desire and then a determination and an increasing practice, and now universal practice, to work together in all our efforts to reach out to the town with the love, the joy, the welcome of God. And this became an entity in early 2021 called LEAF, Locally Encouraging All to Flourish. And the 3 main streams are physical well-being, emotional well-being, and spiritual well-being. A listening and guidance service fits neatly into all 3 of these streams. And it was part of the original vision of the charity. We're privileged too to have ongoing access to counselling services for adults and children offered by LEAF when we need to make onward referral.
Hello, I'm Joy Bates. I'm one of the volunteer chaplains with Chaplaincy Derbyshire. Chaplaincy Derbyshire is a charitable organisation which provides chaplains to many different sectors. Myself and my colleague Ruth are chaplains within the healthcare sector. This sector covers both GP practices and community health services. As GP chaplains, we're based in Ilkeston, which is in the Erewash district of Derbyshire. We both give 1 day a week to this chaplaincy service, and so between us we probably see 10 to 12 patients a week. We take referrals from 6 different GP practices in this area. We've been there now in Ilkeston for 5 years, and I think it's fair to say at the beginning not everybody quite got what chaplaincy is and what we would do. But as time has gone on and they've seen what we do, and now they get us, and we are very much appreciated, and they are pleased that we're there.
I've always been a very passionate advocate of whole person care, and that's because I've had a real long-held belief that mind, body, soul and spirit are all interrelated and that it's intrinsically linked to well-being. And that's been my lived experience. And I see chaplaincy as a central component in the delivery of that care. And so, of course, I'm delighted to be a GP chaplain. I love and value the fact that sessions are patient-directed in terms of what's discussed and also in the approach that's taken. And I really enjoy being able to facilitate the process and use a wide range of resources, including prayer where that's wanted by the patient. I love being part of the multidisciplinary team and being able to draw on the knowledge and the skills of the wider team. And I love the diversity of the role. No 2 people and no 2 situations are ever the same. It's an immense privilege to listen and to journey with people in the most difficult of circumstances and to see light, hope and change all emerge as an outcome.
You can tell that chaplains are passionate, can't you, about what we do? We love it. I've lost my place, I'll get there. I think that one thing you'll have noticed is the variety, actually, the diversity of the way that the service is being offered. Some chaplains are paid, some are working as volunteers, some are employed by the NHS, others by local charities, some by faith communities. So primary healthcare chaplaincy is being delivered in lots of different ways and in lots of different places. This is by no means the most accurate map of primary healthcare chaplaincy services. This is the services that are known to ACGP at this point in time. You might look for yourself and not find yourself, in which case come and tell us, because then we can add you to our knowledge of what's going on and where it's all happening. But you can see north to south, this is a growing opportunity in primary healthcare, which is really, really important, I think. Here at ACGP, we are concerned to support chaplaincy services wherever they're growing up, wherever they're developing. We offer training to chaplains. We offer a wealth of resources. And this is just to remind you of our website, where you can, those particular tabs lead in certain directions for you. And you can visit our stand outside as well downstairs, so that you can learn the kinds of things that we can offer and how we might be able to help you. And also some of the seminars this afternoon, you'll be aware, are designed to help you think about how might I deliver chaplaincy in my area. Which leads us to funding. So I just want you to watch now some people speaking about how their services are funded.
So Caris Neighbour Scheme has been delivering listening guidance in Birmingham for the past just over 10 years. We've been funded throughout that time via an NHS contract, currently working with the local Integrated Care Board as part of their commissioned services. But we've also, over the last few years, taken on additional funding in response to growing levels of need. And that's included working with Living Well Consortium, who have funded us as part of a group of listening services in the city. And also we've had funding more recently via the social prescribing link worker route, which is an additional role funded via the primary care network. And this provides recognition that our work is a specialised form of social prescribing, addressing mental health needs and working in that sort of personalised care model, which is a good fit with the social prescribing model.
My name's Helen Foley. I am employed by Chaplaincy Derbyshire on a part-time basis as a healthcare chaplaincy development worker. Part of my role covers the GP chaplaincy and also for Derbyshire Community Health Services, and working across the sectors to try and promote and develop the chaplaincy. As GP chaplaincy in Erewash has a service level agreement which is reviewed annually, and it is a volunteer service. For the chaplains volunteer, proper process and interviews and references, and they have training which we provide through Chaplaincy Derbyshire.
Although all of the Chaplaincy Derbyshire trustees and most of the chaplains are unpaid, of course the organisation does have costs, and Erewash Health and Derbyshire Community Health Services do make a contribution to our costs, and this goes towards the chaplain's expenses, supervision and training, and the healthcare development worker.
The chaplains are all local and all employed by Leaf, some on a voluntary basis, others on a salaried basis. And because it's funded by Leaf and thereby the Church of the Town, it was able to be offered freely to the medical centre. And this was warmly accepted and received, and we started work in mid-January 2022, supporting patients and staff alike. As you predict, the demand quickly outstripped our supply, and we steadily grown our sessions now to offering 8 sessions per week. We've had about 360 referrals, and I've got about 23 or so on the waiting list.
Primary Care Chaplaincy in Scotland has a couple of funding sources. They have a small charity, or SCIO, called PCCS, Primary Care Chaplaincy Scotland, and this funds the other surgeries that we serve locally. Money for PCCS comes from different sources, firstly from individual donors, then from local fundraising activities such as sponsored runs. We also receive donations from larger charities with a focus on spirituality and health. Then we receive money from grant applications, and more recently with local partnerships from local churches. And we've found that combining these approaches with the use of social media has really promoted local engagement and awareness of chaplaincy. And most of all, it really helps with our model of local chaplains from local faith communities responding to local needs within local surgeries and being able to signpost back into local faith communities.
Scotland's all about the local, as you can tell. Hope bearing is our title for today, and I think it's fair to say that many of the people that we work with feel that they have lost hope. There's huge unevenness, if that's the right word, in the provision of mental health services around the country. It is uneven, but this is one of the solutions, if you like, that's a real possibility for people. Not much more to tell you, but I do want you to hear from a few more groups of people. I'd like you to hear next from some GPs themselves, and one or two funders, I think, are in this video as well, commissioners of services, just explaining what they feel are the benefits of primary healthcare chaplaincy in their surgeries. So thank you to the GPs who've taken part in this. Just click that video to start.
Hello, my name's Catherine. I'm practice manager at Ledbury Health Partnership. We've been fortunate to have the Listening and Guidance Service working with us since February 2022. There are 3 of them who work regularly. They are an incredibly helpful and essential resource for our patients who are in need of mental health services, without whom they would have to wait many months for an appointment under the NHS. They're also an excellent resource for our staff who sometimes have needed some input.
Yeah, listening guidance is something that I consider myself really fortunate to have access to as a GP. I've been a GP for a very long time. It's something that as a GP, I don't think I could do without, to be honest. I say that because the kinds of people who benefit from listening guidance are people who are everyday people like you and me, growing older and becoming more mature and thriving as a human being is all about how you deal with loss. But often we try and medicalise it too much and don't know how to deal with the chaos that it causes. And I find for many patients who present with the effects of chaos in their lives and loss and disappointment, and make them just feel awful and unable to cope, don't know where to go to next. And they often come to their GP because they think, well, that's a person who might know what to do. But they often manifest those things, those distresses, in ways that actually medicine can't help. And having the chance to speak to someone who is really grounded in the meaning of life, really understanding what people's meaning of life is all about and why things fall apart at times in their lives is invaluable.
Hello, my name is Sarah Baines and I am the Wellness and Inequalities Lead for Erewash Primary Care Network. And we are very lucky to have our chaplains working with us as part of our holistic offer for people. So we are all interested in wellness and well-being and how we can help people to experience life in the best way possible. But one thing that we were missing was looking into spiritual life of people and helping people to answer the bigger questions they have in life when they are particularly suffering. And chaplaincy has been our answer. So people come along and talk to the chaplains and they have the very deepest of conversations and they are listened to so deeply by our 2 chaplains who help people to then understand what they're thinking, where their thoughts are going and how it all makes sense. So it's very much about sense making, and it's a really important part of our holistic offer.
So I think what I value is, as a GP, you're often on a journey with a patient, and when you're doing the consultations, you're working alongside them, you're working with them, and you can sometimes get to a point where you just need a little bit more input, but also just the fact that the consultation itself isn't really enough. It's that opportunity to handhold alongside with somebody else and to give them time and space and that sense that they're being looked after and cared for almost like by a wider team, so that you as a GP aren't on your own, but you can also work with somebody else. And often it creates greater confidence for that person in what you're doing, and the fact that you've recommended them on to somebody else who can just add that caring element.
My name's Chris Owen. I work as a GP in Ilkeston in Derbyshire. We have been so lucky to have chaplains at our practice now for about 5 years. We have 2 chaplains who work as volunteers 1 day a week each. We can refer pretty much anybody to them that just needs a listening ear and some support and holistic care. So I tend to refer people with depression or anxiety. Bereavement is an area where they're particularly helpful. And what's been lovely is to hear the feedback, either because of those patients come back to see me personally or they submit written feedback. And reading through that's an absolute joy. We've had patients say things like, I've tried everything, I've tried tablets, I've tried psychiatry, I've tried counselling, I've tried walking, I've tried everything. And it was only when I came to see one of the chaplains here that actually all started to make sense, and they put the pieces together, and I'm loads better. So I would really recommend them. We refer people of any faith or no faith at all, and they're equally happy to see people.
Some points really stood out for me in that last section. Sarah was saying, she said, chaplaincy has been our answer. That was a really powerful statement, just to solving a problem that they were having. Paul, I've got you on tape. This is a service you can't do without. So we'll remember that you said that, which is really valuable and important. Catherine talked about how the chaplaincy services support staff as well as patients. And we find that in our service as well, that actually staff sometimes themselves are in distress. Sometimes the whole practice might be in distress because of something that has happened. And the chaplains can be on hand to offer some support and some care in that situation, or individuals who are going through their own particular challenges. Chris noted that chaplaincy is helping her patients in ways that all sorts of other treatments often are not helping or haven't helped, and how encouraged she is to hear from her patients. I think it's important that we do hear from patients, and we've got some patient quotes. I've got some patient quotes for you in a moment, and also a couple of very brave patients who've agreed to be recorded, sharing something of their experience. But just wanted to say something about evaluation just briefly. I heard somebody say, I forget who it was who said it, not everything that counts can be counted. And I think it's just really, really true. And if we were to reduce a service to just the numbers, we would have missed the point, wouldn't we? But we do have to find ways to evaluate our effectiveness. And one of the most common that I think chaplains are using around the country is WEMWebs. This is the website for WEMWebs. You can see it's a 14-statement well-being check, if you like, using a Likert scale. And we use this in our service, and I think quite a lot of you who are working in chaplaincy also use it. Not every session. It's not that heavy a tool. It can be a real aid to the conversation because the statements are quite broad and they can open up the conversation as you're completing it. So we maybe do it at the beginning, somewhere in the middle and towards the end, but not rigidly. But it does help us to see how are we doing. And we're finding that there's an uplift on average of between 8 and 14 points across the WEMWebs as a result of a course of chaplaincy sessions, which is at least equivalent to an antidepressant treatment. It's statistically very significant, and we're very pleased to see that that happens. And really, it's the power of listening, of being heard and not being judged and being paid attention to. We also use a thing called PROM, which stands for Patient Reported Outcome Measures. And that's where I'm going to finish here. We're going to come to some of those. So this is a tool where patients can give us more of a narrative response, some more narrative feedback on how they're experiencing the service, how has it helped them. So it's qualitative data, really. And I've got some quotes from patients that we've worked with in Birmingham, just to give you a flavour of the kinds of things that the patients are saying. This person said that the chaplaincy had been an absolute lifeline. The chaplain was able to follow, interpret, and reflect back on whatever I brought to the sessions. And very often what they bring, the tell me more about it, what they bring changes from session to session, but having someone who can hear it is so important to them. You gave me space, shared wisdom that have helped jumpstart and continue to facilitate my healing. I am more hopeful that these wounds will heal. I get emotional when I get to this point. those who know me well know that I cry very easily and I get emotional at this. You know, I feel hope now that I'm going to be able to get better. Isn't that a wonderful testimony? Whoa, she's not saying I am better. She's saying I've got hope now that it's going to be all right. And the person who said, thank you for pointing me towards places and people that can help. I don't feel so alone. Sometimes we do that signposting or that referring on, so significant in the work that we do. We know that we don't have all the answers, but just to be able to be part of the process, part of the multidisciplinary team, as Anthea referred to earlier. This was a person who had felt that in the midst of a difficult time, she was losing her faith. Things had happened to her that she kind of had a faith, but it was slipping. But she said of chaplaincy, I've learned so much about myself and God. I feel I'm stronger than ever before. And what an amazing grace to experience hardship and come out the other end. This was someone who was a real high flyer, a real high achiever, who saw her time of distress and depression really as a bit like the end of the world. It had felt like such a collapse for her. She'd been so disappointed that it had happened. And so for her to be able to then see it as a grace, what a grace to have actually faced a hardship and found a way out the other end. Isn't that lovely? Just thrilled about that. I've learned how to regulate my emotions, recognize triggers, take care of myself. I have learned that I'm worthy of this. Just because of that non-judgmental space. I'm going to cry at this last quote. People have heard this before. People at Caris have heard this before. This last quote comes from a young man who had faced a lot of trauma in his life. He was really, really troubled. He got lots and lots of trauma. And it wasn't long before in our chaplaincy sessions, we both realised actually a better place for you would be some higher intensity trauma help. And so I made a referral to our trauma specialist, which we're very grateful to have at Caris. And he waited a little while for those sessions. And while he was waiting, he stayed with me and kept coming. And I didn't feel I'd done any good for him at all, really. I mean, I'd spotted that he needed the onward referral, and that was about as much as I felt I could do for him. And so in our last session together, we were just reflecting, you know, how has it been? And it's been lovely to work with you. It's been great to meet you, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just sort of, sorry, I couldn't do more, you know. It was all a little bit like that. And I just said to him, because I really applaud the fact that you've kept coming and that you're brave enough to go on to some more intense therapy. I said, because I know it really hurts. And he said, yes, Helen, but it hurts less here. That's why I do my job, really. That's why I do this job. Oh, hang on, I want to stop that. I just want to hear from these two patients. They both have given their formal and written consent, by the way, to be filmed. Very brief clips from these patients. One of them simply asked that we blur her face, and their names are not showing, but they have given their consent to be in this film, and I think they're really brave to have done it. So let's hear from them.
I found that attending the listening and guidance service here very helpful. I have learnt myself some new skills and some new ways to deal with my challenges in life through disability, physical problems, and my emotional and mental state. I think that the service offered here is extremely well run, and I've been very grateful to be able to facilitate it and to benefit from it. Thank you.
You've been a great listener. To have someone to talk to and tell them how I feel and that they listen to you without maybe just pushing you to one side and saying everything will be okay, you know, or you're doing well, or you're bound to feel like that. The relaxation techniques that you've given me have been great. The prayer cards, I really love them. They're by my bedside. I'm now looking at doing part-time work or voluntary work to make up. It's been a safe environment just to come here, a comfortable and safe environment.
They do well. Really proud of them. I don't want to kind of leave the final word with them, really. It's just wonderful. So thank you very much for your attention. I know I've kept you a bit long and late. Lunch is a bit late. But I hope now that you've perhaps got a bit of a better picture of what this looks like on the ground, how primary healthcare chaplaincy can really benefit patients. At the end of the conference, we're going to have a plenary time when you can ask more questions. Please use Slido for that, or fill in a card at the ACGP desk. But I just want to say thank you again to everyone who contributed to the videos. I know you were out of your comfort zone, some of you, but thank you very much for helping to tell the story. I think when we draw alongside people who are in distress and we just say, tell me more, And then we listen, with kindness and with compassion, with patience, and actually with love. I think that's why we can call ourselves hope bearers. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoy your lunch.